Hi there, it's Brian Sebastian, Movie Reviews and More, Women on TV.tv, and iTube 247 out of Franklin, Tennessee. All right, so we got another special show today, and this one is very unique because Sherry's just kicking butt around here and bringing on her friends. So let's talk about this. I'm going to let this young lady do this. Sherry, introduce your friend.
Hi, Jimmy Star. This is such a great honor for me. You're my new American family. For those of you who don't know who Jimmy Star is, they call him Mr. Hollywood. He's the hardest working man that I know, aside from my father. And I brought something along, Jimmy, and this photo here, I hope you can see it.
Oh, yeah.
It is the essence of you. We are at the Sue Wong Gala, and everybody's in red, is in gowns and everything. And there's Jimmy right here in a tuxedo, still working. He is the most selfless man. He never thinks about himself. His number one priority is Ron, his husband, and all of his many, many clients, myself included. And I'm just so thankful that you are a part of my life. You've made it so much better in many, many ways. And everybody, this is Jimmy Star.
Oh my gosh, what a phenomenal introduction. I love it. And you're so wonderful. Not only are you gorgeous, but you're an actually really good person. And we find so few of those nowadays. So it's such an honor to know you and work with you. And I'm super excited to be on the show. So everybody, thank you so much for inviting me.
Hey, Jimmy, talk about this. What made you get into the world of entertainment? How'd that happen for you?
You know what? It's a kind of interesting story.
Which is why I asked the question.
I really wanted to be a singer, and I was a singer and starred in all these like productions when I was a kid. And when my voice changed, something happened, and I got nervous and I couldn't do it anymore. So I can't sing. I suck at it now. I don't know what happened. And I always wanted to be in entertainment, and I thought, how could I do it? And I was always really interested in fashion. So my foray into entertainment was I was a celebrity clothing designer. And I made one-of-a-kind clothes, and I was featured in Women's Wear Daily and all these things, and all these famous people came to me to dress them. And then I started doing costume design for films, and that was my foray into entertainment. I was a clothing designer. I dressed Elton John. I did the costume design for Too Fast, Too Furious. I dressed every major horror movie star on the planet. I dressed all kinds of people, the Goo Goo Dolls, I don't know, all kinds of people in my one-of-a-kind clothes that I made. And that was my foray to get myself into entertainment.
What was it that you liked about, they liked about your fashion taste? And then there was always someone that recommends us to go to the next step. Who was that next person that said, you should be doing this?
You know what? It was a total fluke. First of all, as a clothing designer, I just loved it, and it was a lot of fun. And unfortunately, I had a really great building. It was kind of like Fred Siegel's in Los Angeles, and the government eminent domained my property, and I lost everything. I lost $4 million. I lost everything I had ever worked for. It was like an illegal land grab, and I had to reinvent myself, and I didn't have any money left to go and do clothing design, so I had to come up with something else. And so I was part of, while I was a clothing designer, Y100, which is like the big radio station in Florida, it's kind of like Z100, they're like affiliate stations. They did Queer Eye for the Straight Guy, the radio version, and they named me to be the fashion guy for it. And I was on the radio every day for like 3 months, and I was like, oh my God, this is so much fun. This would be like a lot of fun. I liked it to be a radio guy. I'm enjoying it. I was getting good responses and everything. So I was looking on Craigslist one day, and there was an ad for an online radio station looking for interns. And I contacted the station. I said, hey, I don't really want to be an intern, but, I'm a clothing designer. I've dressed a lot of famous people that I could probably get as interviews. I'd like to host a show. And so they said, okay, let's try it. And after our third week, we had a 50-minute show. And after our third week, they came and said, everybody loves you. You want to do a 2-hour show? And I said, yes. And that was where it was born. And that was 13 years ago.
Congratulations for you on that. Sherry, is hope for everybody, isn't there?
Well, Jimmy Star, he's unique. Everything he touches, he's got the Midas touch. Everything turns to gold. I know that he's the #1 web show on the internet right now, and him and Ron Russell get over 5 million views for their weekly show on Wednesday. So everybody really should check it out. It's fun. It's lighthearted. It's a really good way of this form of escapement. And Jimmy, do you think
Absolutely.
that's why you and Ron are so successful? You're consistently, number 3, number 4. Do you think that people just yearn for something more positive like that?
I think so. I really think the reason that we're successful is really Ron. I mean, before Ron came on the show, I was on the air for 4 years without Ron, and we were the #1 show on the East Coast, which was still a really big deal. But Ron brings first of all, we're unscripted, we're unfiltered. He's 80 years old, so he's from a different time, so he's not always politically correct. He doesn't always know who some of these young superstar people are. And it makes it, I think the whole ambiance of it makes it really fun, because if they're not from old Hollywood, he doesn't really know who they are. And it makes it, fun, because we're not politically correct. We like talk about breasts, and we like make fun of things, and we just like, it's just fun. Like, we just have a good fun. The whole purpose is just to have a good time and promote whoever's coming on the show. We don't ever do, probably like your show, we don't ever bring people on and then bring up any negative things from their past. If they had, if they got arrested for picking up a hooker or something weird like that, we would never actually bring that up during the show, because the whole purpose of having people on the show is not to bring out anything bad that they ever did. It's just to promote whatever that they have been successful with, because we bring them on because we love them, and we bring them on to have a good time. And so having a show that's just always positive and never bringing out the negative in anything, I think people like that, especially, because all the time there's so many bad things going on. It's kind of like a way to just come and like escape and have a good time and laugh.
But also in Ron's defense, he's earned it. I say this, once you've gone past 76 to that 80, I look at it, you've earned whatever you want to do in your golden era. So he was in that golden era, but that's why the show will work, and that's why it does work, because he doesn't need to know. He is much more interesting than most of these other people, because he lived it. They will never be able to go back, unless it's a parallel universe, which there is, to go back and live that. There's not that many icons left like that in the world. It's unfortunate.
Right. Yeah, and it is unfortunately, but you are absolutely right. You'll never be able to go back and do it. He's got great stories. He was fortunate he had a TV show on Time Warner Cable, and so he's interviewed some really huge, like Jane Russell and Tony Curtis and some of the biggest legends of Hollywood. And he's got great stories, and he just has fun. And now he's an actor, and he's acting in all these B horror movies, and he's having a blast. And we get to go to a lot of fun events and meet a lot of the new up and coming stars. And the whole thing about life is you got to have fun. So the whole purpose of our show is to promote people and just to have fun. It's like a form of escapism that we can just go and have a good time and not really have to worry about anything, and just enjoy ourselves.
Hey Sherry, when it comes to those unscripted shows, that's why things like that work, because think of Larry King. Larry King, was 80 something, but I would always see him at movie screenings at if you remember the Charles Haycroft screening room, which used to be in Beverly Hills. Charles and I became friends. After a while, I was driving him home. And again, everybody went to that private screening room, Sherry, which was off of Rodeo and Drive. Everybody in the world went to that private screening room to see their films. He used to have coffee in there, Oreos, and Jimmy, I know you were there at one point just going to that stuff, but everybody went there. And then you mentioned Tony Curtis. I remember hanging out with Tony Curtis. He came over to my friend's house, and then we developed a great relationship. But I also remember the first time I met him at VSDA, which is the Video Software Dealers Association, which we used to be in Las Vegas in the summer. He was promoting some of his legendary stuff that was just going to VHS at that time. Video software dealers. So everybody would be at the home video shows, Sherry. And then you can meet these iconic people, but you had to get the approval back in the day. Remember, Jimmy? They wouldn't just let anybody interview you. No, you had to go through their manager, their PR. That was really tough. But if you got a chance to be with them and interview them, that meant something. So he and I became friends, and it was an honor, because I interviewed him and his daughter, Jamie, and we became friends till this day, and I love that.
Oh, absolutely. I think I think that's one cool thing about the entertainment industry. And I think once you get yourself established enough that you can start to open doors, many, many more doors open, and you meet some of the greatest people that, like growing up, I'd be like, oh my God, I would just die if I could meet this person. And now I'm going to dinner with these people, so it really does make it a lot of fun.
I know, Jimmy, you had mentioned that one of your keys to success, and I'm a big believer, is networking. And you're always so positive that you always believe if you do good for someone, they'll do good for you. And that's key to your success, to accumulating more access and things like that. And I think that's important for people to understand in any industry, that is what has happened, which leads to your PR firm, World Star PR. And you share that with Eileen Shapiro in New York, and you have a really important global reach. How did you and Eileen first meet?
Okay, so Eileen had written a book, and her publicist had booked her on our show. So I booked her on our show to come on our show, and we had a really good time. And Ron and Eileen hit it off right off the bat, and Eileen invited us to her house on Fire Island, and we went out and met her and hung out and had a good time. And then we went on a ghost hunt, and we went on a ghost hunt at a psychiatric asylum in New York. And it was Eileen. She used to write for the Huffington Post. So it was Eileen and Ron and I. And we had a medium, Kadrosha Ona Karol. And we had Ricky Rebel, who was a famous pop star who opened for Britney Spears and Michael Jackson and all kinds of stuff. So we went on this ghost hunt, and we had a blast. And the ghost hunt got 200 and something thousand views. And after the ghost hunt, we were sitting at McDonald's talking, and we all met through the exact same publicist. And we found out that publicist was charging her clients a ton of money for Eileen to interview him. It was like $1,000. And to come on my show was like $2,500. And I was like, oh my God, I booked like 100 people. She made like, freaking $250,000 or, for putting people on my show or something, or 25,000, right, whatever it was, a lot of money. And I was like, oh my God. And I didn't make a penny, and I'm like broke. And Eileen was like, we should start and Eileen asked me a question. She said, do publicists come to you all the time and ask you for help? And I said, yeah, I give people help all the time. And she said, me too. We should just start our own PR firm, make it affordable, that anybody can afford it, and see what we could do. And I was like, okay. And 2 days later, we came up with the name World Star PR. And within a week, we had 10 clients. And within 6 months, I got named the best entertainment publicist in the US. And we basically just took off from there. And we started out, we took anybody we could get, and now we're much more picky because now we take people who we think are really talented, that we can actually do something to help them. But that's how it started. And then we made a comic book, Celebrity Ghost Hunters, about that. So our comic book just came out 2 weeks ago, and it's a lot of fun. But we actually met by doing this ghost hunt, and it was a blast. We had the best time ever.
Jimmy, can you tell us about the comic book? I know that it's more for adults. It is humorous, and you and Ron and Eileen and you guys look very attractive on there. So you're lucky. Not often does that happen. But what is so unique, and like, I know I've got a copy coming. I've ordered mine. What makes yours different than anyone else that would make it a wonderful gift?
You know what? Number one, it's fun. Number two, it was backed by fans on Kickstarter or Indiegogo or one of them. I'm not sure because I didn't do it, but fans actually supported it. So there's like little pictures of all the people who supported it in here. They're either a ghost flying through the sky or on the picture at the McDonald's, which isn't called McDonald's. It's called Mick Ronaldo's. So we didn't get in trouble. And I think that what makes it fun is that all of us. It's got some comedic things in it. It's drawn very well, and now we're talking about that. Like, the comedic actually we had a really time doing it. I want to do more of them, and I think the whole thing is really fun. And it all came about because of what you spoke about earlier, which is the networking, which is the most important thing. And I just want to make a point to anybody who's actually, like, anybody who sees this. It's very important that everybody can help each other out, and everybody can grow, and everybody can be successful. There's so many people who want you to do things for them and never want to do anything in return. I mean, that's not the way it's to be. Every show can be successful. Like my show is pretty successful, but I have a goal to be bigger, just like everybody else's show wants to be bigger. And if everybody helps promote, I have a great network on Twitter, and everybody helps promote everybody else in our little group. So we don't look at it as competition. Just because you have a show and I have a show doesn't mean like I can't say what a great show you have and help promote your show the same way you can't do the same thing for me, and we could all grow together. So if everybody worked together, everybody can be successful, and it doesn't matter what you do, whether you're an actress, a lawyer, it doesn't matter what you do. If everybody just tried to help each other out as opposed to everybody trying to backstab everybody, the world would be a better place, the entertainment would be great, and we could all help each other and just, live more in harmony. It would be really a cool thing.
And that's true. It's not about competition. It's about betting yourself. And I call it cause and effect. I've been practicing Buddhism for 32 years. If you got to make those good causes and just send it out to the universe and just wait for it to come back. There's no time limit on it. And
Right.
one of the things I learned was I didn't notice until October of 1993 when I started Movie Reviews and More. I was a late bloomer. Once my friend, Joya Delaney said, "Brian, you're a late bloomer. You were never supposed to do this at an earlier age because it wouldn't have worked." I said, "Oh, I'm glad you told me." So once that was okay, I was okay with that.
Yeah, I was a late bloomer too, because I'm 55 now, and I started when I was 42 doing it. So I was like pretty old. I was a clothing designer before that, but I didn't get into any of this stuff until I was like, older. And now it's like secondhand, but like I love it. And I think it also shows that you're never too old to do anything. You can always do whatever you want to do. My dad was 80 when he started his a bee business, like making honey and selling honey, raising bees. And he did it for 10 years before he passed away. Ron's always been in entertainment, but he left for many years. And now at 80 years old, he's busier, than he's ever been in entertainment. He's got like 8 films, that are getting ready to be done that he's going to be a part of. And at 80, he's, tackling it all. And so I think the biggest thing is if you have a dream, do it whenever it is that you can do it. You need to just do it and go for it.
See that, Sherry? You're in great company and there's plenty of help going your way. I think that's great.
You included, Brian. Jimmy, you've got a very strong friendship with Sue Wong. Do you think, and she's the iconic, legendary fashion designer, do you think you'll ever step back into fashion?
I think I might. I think it would be a lot of fun. The reason my fashion was successful is because I only made one-of-a-kind clothes, so I wasn't mass-produced. So I had little boutiques, and each one had different things filled with all one-of-a-kind clothes, and that's why we primarily dressed like rock stars and people in entertainment because I didn't really make very many normal-looking things.
Well, everyone wants to be a rock star, but can you tell people about one unique aspect about your showroom? I think, yeah. I think it was invite only, or
yeah, you had to ring a doorbell to get in. And so basically we only let people in if they were seriously interested in shopping, because everything I made was one of a kind. A lot of people, came in just trying to like take pictures to knock me off, because I would see my stuff on the runways of the big designers. I don't want to like say them because I don't want them to come after me, but the biggest designers in the world, if you would go through their runway shows and watch, you would see all my stuff, walking down the runway, and I didn't have it anymore. So what they would do is they would come in, they would buy it, and then go knock it off.
but that was so genius because people always want access to where they can't go. So
right.
With you putting a barrier, they really wanted to know what was behind that wall, which made your probably demand for your fashions even more desirable.
Awesome. We had such a good time. It was really fun because the people that got in were very happy to come in, and they would buy a lot of stuff. And it wasn't, it was relatively expensive, because it's like one of a kind. Like I had jeans, some of them were like $1,800 because there was so much beadwork and all this like stuff, done on them. But it was a lot of fun. We met the coolest people ever. Some of the coolest people that you would ever want to meet coming in there. And that actually is how I met a lot of the celebrities when I first started doing a radio show and a podcast and everything, because I used to take my clothes to like Comic-Con, and I would rent a room, and I would go to all the celebrities there when I'm, getting their autograph and say, hey, I'm a clothing designer. I make really cool stuff. I'd love for you to look at it, and anything that you'll wear, if I can take a picture, you can have it. And I would bring like, $50,000 or $100,000 worth of clothes into a hotel room, and they would come in and try Stefan, and I would take pictures with all of them, and then we would become friends, and we would end up getting them. That's how I would get them to come on my show. Because then they were friends. I wasn't approaching a stranger, and they all loved it. And that's how I actually developed my whole show. That's how I got all the famous people to come on the show from the very beginning. Once you build a name, it's not that hard. It's easier to get the names, but when you're first starting out, it's very difficult. When I first started out, I had all these superstar people right off the bat because I gave away so many clothes.
Well, Jimmy, you did it the correct way because it's still all about networking. And there's a lot of publicists. And again, I never went to agents. I never went to managers. I always said it's about the publicist, because it's a publicist's job to get that client that job, vice versa. They need that job. They need the outlet to talk about the job that they just did. And that's why I love dealing with Rogers and Cowens, PMK, Baker Warner and the Writer, which used to be around. Pat Kingsley, if you remember Pat Kingsley, she wouldn't let Tom Cruise interview anybody unless she liked you. And it was an honor because I was doing all these big people because of my relationship with the publicist. Till this day, very important. So yes, that's why, and it goes to Sherry, that's why I started going after certain brands, environmentally friendly, sustainable, because I'm like, why should I give all these people the access of the stuff that I'm booking and they're making the money of it, right, Jimmy? Well, you found that out the hard way, right? So I started going after these companies, and I started getting them because of just how you described. And then when I interviewed Kirk Douglas, he had his stroke like 7 months prior to that. So I think I interviewed when he was either 83, I believe. And it was an honor because I always looked up to him. Not only was he a civil rights advocate, but he put the first African American in one of his movies. He was always like that. So I love those things. And then talking about bees, I'm so glad to hear that your dad did those. Bees, I want to have bees on our property, Sherry, because what's happening without bees, we don't survive. We need bees. They're a very, very important thing.
I don't think people know that either.
They don't know.
They don't know that, but it's very, very important. And we used to bottle our own honey then. We would raise the bees, bottle our own honey, and sell it like all over the place. Like my dad was very entrepreneurial. He made more money doing the bee thing than he did with his regular job for 50, he was with Delta Airlines, I think, for 40 or 50 years.
Oh, that's interesting because my mom worked for Delta for about 10 years. So I always flew Delta. But yeah, Savannah Bees, whatever bee company I want to have, I need to have 3 dozen bees on our property for Dreamweaver because it's very, very important because we plan to do the same thing on that.
There you go. It's a very cool thing. And it's something that actually helps the environment in the world.
Absolutely. There's a couple, 3 great bee movies on in Savonia. This one lady, she raised bees and she would save just enough for herself and then she kept the rest for the bees. And she would always say this, I only need what I need to have and the bees can have the rest of that because they created that. And I never forgot that. That was really, really, really good.
Yes, very good.
Hey, Jimmy, when you moved from the East Coast to the West Coast, what was that move like for you? And how did you adjust to that?
It was freaking awesome. I lived on the East Coast my whole life. I lived in Florida the first 48 years. Then I lived in Pennsylvania for 5 years, and we would go to New York every week for events because it was like an hour and a half away. Ron used to live here in Palm Springs. A lot of celebrities live in Palm Springs, and since Eileen is in New York, and I can do my job as a publicist anywhere I have a computer and a phone, I was like, yeah, let's go to California. And it was the best move ever. California is a phenomenal place to live for entertainment. If I don't know about everything else, but working in the entertainment industry, it has been terrific. I love living in Palm Springs. We have all kinds of really cool, like soap opera stars and stuff that we hang out with and have a good time with. And I'm an hour and a half from LA. So we go to LA. Well, before the pandemic, we would go to LA at least once a week for like a red carpet event or a premiere or for something. And so I can't wait for that to get back again. But I love to live close to the action, but not necessarily in the action. So being an hour and a half away, although we have to drive each way, it's really nice because the desert in Palm Springs is beautiful.
Jimmy, I just got a message from Eileen, your partner. She wants to know, what is your favorite zombie or horror item?
My favorite zombie or horror item. Does anybody? I have 2 favorite items. Actually, I have 3 favorite items. So if you're a horror person and you saw the Saw movies, in Saw 3, the whole movie revolves around this guy whose kid gets killed, and the kid has this stuffed pink pig. And I have the actual stuffed pink pig from Saw 3 in my case over here. Then I have a tile. Do you guys know who Lance Henriksen is? He's a big actor from everything. Terminator, Aliens, yeah, all kinds of things. And he makes these tiles of the alien monster. He doesn't sell them. He just makes them. And I met him and gave him some clothes, and we went to dinner. And at the end of the weekend, of one of these convention weekends, he had it sitting on his thing. And I was just saying goodbye and what a great time I had. And he gave it to me. He wrote, like, Jimmy Star, you're cool as a nasty word, but for fun. And he signed it, and he said thank you, and he signed it, and he gave it to me. And you know, if you go on eBay, they're like thousands of dollars to get these like tiles, and he just gave it to me. And he doesn't sell them; he just makes them and gives them to people. And so the fact that he gave me one was really cool. And then horror icon Clive Barker. He's all Hellraiser movies, and he's a big New York Times best-selling author. And one day when I was at a convention, I went to him and said, hey, I'd love for you to look at my stuff. And he kind of like didn't have time. There was like, I don't know, 1,000 to 1,500 people in line to meet him. And I got a call at like 11 o'clock at night saying, I gave him my card, and I was at a party, and he said, I would really love to come and look at the stuff. Would it be possible to come? And so I ran back to my room. I was like, oh my God, Clive Barker, he's like such an icon. And he ended up staying, trying on clothes, and took pictures and telling us stories till 7 in the morning. He stayed there for 8 hours and telling us all these cool Hollywood stories. And he had a new book that had just come out, and he did a Clive Barker one-of-a-kind drawing, because he's also an artist, inside the cover of the book that he made just for me, and gave me the book. And I was so like excited. So they're in my like very special people case. So that's my 3 favorites. I like a whole bunch of things, but those are my 3 favorites.
What's funny about that is you mentioned the horror films. George Romero, just thinking about him, one of my favorite film, not the Night of the Living Dead, not the black and white one, the one that took place in the mall. And the reason that scared me, Dawn of the Dead, is because we saw it in the mall in Connecticut with 7 people at a midnight showing. And everything, in case you haven't seen it, it's called Dawn of the Dead. And it's one of those things where it takes place in a mall. That mall looked identical with that the movie that we saw. And by the time we were coming out, we all looked at each other and we were scared because there was no one else in the mall. And then we go out into the parking lot, because some of it takes place in the parking lot. There's 7 cars and they're all spread out. We're like looking around like, this is scary. I never forgot.
That actually took place in Pennsylvania. They shot that movie at a mall in Pennsylvania, and George Romero, rest his soul, is gone now. But his son, who's also a big film director, I'm working on a bunch of film projects with him right now. He's a really cool guy. And
the entire Saw franchise is the best. That is the most money-making franchise in horror history still. So I love it. I was there for the very first one. I think you might have been there too. We just had met. Because I was always in a radio room doing all the interviews with them with like 5 other people. So we did the very first one. I was there for the 10th anniversary with the creators. And I asked them, and I'm looking around, I'm like, I'm the only one here who was here when it started. And then they had all these newer faces, and I'm like, who are these people? And it was interesting. So I go, remember when we interviewed you 10 years ago? You guys just did this premise of it. And then did you guys expect this to blow up? And they go, no, we had no idea. We thought we were going to be one and done.
I know we had Lee Winnell and James Wan on our show, and I was like, and now you probably couldn't get near them. I mean, they're like huge, they're like so big, but then they weren't as well known, and I consider that to be like a really like awesome thing, that sometimes people get so big, that unfortunately you can't get to them, at least not where at our level, and so the fact that we got to interview them at the start of all of it, because I mean it's such a great franchise, and even though every film isn't great, they're still really fun. I mean it's disgusting and it's gross and and things like that, but it's a lot of fun.
So Sherry, we got about 5 minutes. What's the question that you would ask Jimmy that you've never had the chance to ask him?
Shoot, I have 2. Jimmy, is there an avenue you would like to pursue that you have not yet? And what do you want you to be remembered by? I know I remember you've got the most infectious laugh. That's almost the 3rd person on your show with Jimmy Star with Ron Russell. But what do you want to be remembered by? And also what avenue would you like to continue and try to pursue?
I think I want to just be remembered as somebody who pursued his dreams, but also tried to help other people, pursue theirs also. Because I think it's really important that everybody gets to pursue their dreams whenever you do it. Like whatever age in life. I started really late in life, and so I didn't do it early, and I wish I would have started earlier. But I think it's important that everybody pursue their dreams, because if you don't try, it's always going to be a what could have happened type thing, and I don't think people should have a what could have happened type thing. I think everybody should try it, whether they fail or not. Being successful shouldn't be your ultimate goal. The ultimate goal should be having a good time doing what you want to do along the way. And so I think that's really important. And what haven't I done? It seems so weird, but I think if I wasn't doing all this, I would have been an attorney. I
Oh,
love like legal
That's
shows and
interesting.
law shows and anything that has to do like legal movies are always my favorite ones. And I think that I would have been like a lawyer for the people, to represent, people who are misrepresented or prejudiced against, or something that would help people who need someone with a lot of balls to do it.
you be him.
I think that's what I would have done. Because even now, sometimes I watch stuff and think, oh, I don't know if I was really pretty good in school, so I probably could have gotten into law school. I never thought about it because I didn't want to do it then. But I think that would be something that, as I got older, I might like to do it just to try it to see if I could do it.
I think you'd be well. I think you'd do great.
Thank you. I love
You are doing great, and you are doing well. I'm amazed that we haven't met before. That means we were been in the same circles, which is very interesting because I always did a lot of the one-on-ones, all the stuff. So you had to have been there. I don't know how we missed each other. That's interesting.
That's right. Well, you're very successful at what you do. You have a great name. I Googled you when I first met you to see, and everybody thinks you're fabulous and wonderful and that your show is wonderful. So congratulations on all your success. I love the fact that you're doing stuff with Sherry Nelson, who literally, besides being like gorgeous, is one of the coolest people on planet Earth. And I'm hoping that, that her career in entertainment keeps burgeoning and blossoming because she's such a wonderful person, and everybody who meets her loves her, and everybody really should meet her because she's just a wonderful person. So the two of you guys doing this together is really cool. And I think it's great that you brought her on board for some of your interviews. And I think you guys are doing a fantastic job.
Thank you, Jimmy.
Well, we all have great things for us. Like you said earlier, we're supposed to help people. And that's what I said. I was always the smallest outlet. I was never syndicated when you were supposed to be syndicated doing all this stuff. But I made friends through the publicist. For whatever reason, maybe they saw something, maybe they felt sorry for me. And, some of them just plain liked me. But again, all I knew was it was never about competition. And I knew I was going to outlast every single one of them because what they were doing, they took it for granted. And I never took it for granted. When you have someone tell me, we can't invite you to this movie because you're not a black outlet, you start thinking differently about things. And I'll never forget this one lady, she handled Titanic. And she said this to me on the phone, because you remember, Jimmy, back in the days, they would call you on the phone and invite you to a screening or to a red carpet. Hey, we're having this at the Four Seasons of Beverly Hills. Would you want to interview so-and-so? I'm like, of course. So when, I called her because she didn't call me, she goes, I'm sorry, Brian, we can't invite you because you're not a black outlet. And I'll never forget. I got the phone in my right hand. I'm looking at my palm saying to myself, I'm like, I'm still black. I'm like, so, okay, so, all right, I see how this is going to go. So I never said, okay, I'm never going to be a black outlet. It's called Movie Reviews and More. It's not called Black Brian Sebastian. It was never about that. The more part was more important because this is where Sherry comes in. So I never forgot that. And I said, I'll never be labeled. I'll never have anybody attempt to label me, and I haven't. So I've always been that rebel. I've always been that vanguard. I've always been that cavalier, and I enjoy doing it.
Oh, I think that's perfect. That's just the same thing with me. Like, I don't want to be labeled as the gay outlet. Like, yes, we're gay, but that's just happens to be our sexual orientation, but it's not, we're not defined by that. We do all kinds of cool things. We have a really good time. We support everybody who we think is terrific in helping the world. And that's just the way things, should be. And I think your show is fabulous. I've looked at your guest list. It's unbelievable, the phenomenal celebrities that you had the opportunity to interview, and everybody just needs to tune in and watch it all the time because they'll learn so much from the people that you bring.
This is what we're supposed to do. And we're supposed to give people opportunities like Sherry. That's the whole thing about it.
Oh, no, absolutely. And Sherry is going to be a superstar. You guys have no idea. She's just going to take over already. As soon as the pandemic's over and we can get her, we already have all kinds of films interested in booking her. So we're going to she's just going to be taking over the whole world. Right now she's stuck in Canada, but soon she's going to be taking over all of America, and everybody's going to know her name.
So Sherry, we got like 60 seconds. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry. So everyone out there, don't forget to check out Jimmy's blog, Jimmy Star's World. And every Wednesday, him and Ron Russell on the Jimmy Star Show with Ron Russell. You'll enjoy it and you'll become addicted to it, I'm sure.
Thank you.
That was funny. I was going to say, Jimmy, give us your social media links. And Sherry's right on top of it. I didn't even have
That's right. And it's at Dr. Jimmy Star on Twitter and Instagram, you guys. Those are my two strongest platforms. So it's Dr. Jimmy Star. JimmyStarsWorld.com is my blog, and the Jimmy Star Show with Ron Russell. Everything I do, World Star PR, and everything can be found on JimmyStarsWorld.com. And thank you. I want to thank you both for having us on here.
And Sherry, give your
Thank
social
you
media
for coming.
links.
I'm Facebook and Twitter and Instagram, XOXO, Sherry XO. But Jimmy, thank you. I was so happy to be here to see you.
Yes, Jimmy, I appreciate it. And this is not a one and done, Jimmy. We're going to have you come back, and we're going to have you bring your partner Ron back too. That'll be very interesting. I look forward to that.
And Ron just turned 80. He turned a young 80 a week ago.
Yeah, he's fabulous. He's
Tell
wonderful.
him I said happy birthday. Continued success.
Thank you so much. All righty. Thank you so much, you guys. It's been a blast.
So with that, I'm Brian Sebastian for Jimmy and for Sherry. If you see someone without a smile, please give them one of yours because the world needs it. We will see you next week and have a good day.